Today, we're going to get our inner snob on as we take a look at the Dividend Aristocrats. What makes them so special? You're just going to have to watch and find out. Hi and welcome to Financial Brew. My name is Candace, and as always, I will be your guide as we take another trip into the financial verse. Today we're going to talk about Dividend Aristocrats. Of course, the first thing that might come to mind is, well, what is a Dividend Aristocrat? This answer is actually going to be twofold. There is a Canadian version of a Dividend Aristocrat, and there's also an American version. We're going to cover both of these today because I want to give an overview of both countries. When it comes to trading, the American market is definitely not something that we want to ignore. There is a lot of money to be made in the American side of the stock market. So it's absolutely something you want to always be aware of. So in Canada, to become a Dividend Aristocrat, a company needs to achieve 3 criteria. So the first is that they have to have increased their dividends for 5 consecutive years. It doesn't matter how much they've increased their dividends by. It can certainly be a marginal amount, but they have to have at least increased 5 years in a row, and they have to maintain this. So the second they miss a year of increasing their dividends, they are no longer a Dividend Aristocrat. In addition to increasing their dividends, they also have to have a market cap of at least $300 million. So that certainly eliminates a lot of smaller cap companies. So in addition to the market cap, they also have to be listed on the TSX and be a member of the S&P Canada BMI. Now that is a sub-index of the S&P Global BMI, but that's another criteria that they have to hit. So that is Canada. Now when we go to the US, you're going to see something interesting. It's actually more difficult in the United States to become a Dividend Aristocrat. And why? Well, the first reason is they have to have increased their dividends for 25 consecutive years. So they have a very, very long haul. I mean, as a matter of fact, there's a lot of Dividend Aristocrats in Canada that if you measured them against the 25 years, they would no longer be Dividend Aristocrats. Now, in the US, not only do they have to have increased their dividends for 25 straight years, they also have to be a member of the S&P 500, and they must be worth $3 billion and have a daily volume of $5 million traded. So the bar is much higher in the United States for the Dividend Aristocrat, so it is much harder to hit that mark south of the border. Once you become a Dividend Aristocrat, there is another higher level that you can aspire towards, and that is known as a Dividend King. So what is a Dividend King? It's pretty much the exact same requirement as a Dividend Aristocrat, but you need to have been increasing your dividends for 50 consecutive years. And it is the same criteria for both Canada and the US. So if we look at Canada, you'll see right now we currently have no Dividend Kings, but we do have a few companies that are getting pretty darn close to becoming Dividend Kings. Now with the US, it's a different story. In the United States, we have 32 Dividend Kings after adding 5 new ones recently. The 32 is kind of behind my picture, but trust me, it's there on the PowerPoint. Okay, so why is this important? The reason that they are so important is, well, there's a couple of them. The first is that Dividend Aristocrats, I mean, they're the pinnacle of blue chip dividend stock investing. When you are looking to have a very stable blue chip stock dividend portfolio, these are your bread and butter. Now, in addition to that, because they have had to pay out their dividends and increase their dividends for so many years in a row, they've demonstrated them to be a very reliable source of passive income in both the good and, more importantly, the bad economic environments. So on those years where everybody's tightening their belt, they're still increasing their dividends. That is an awesome thing when it comes to your actual portfolio. In a downturn, they will often still make their dividend payments. There have been some situations where a company has loved being an aristocrat that they will even borrow money if they have to make the increases to their dividend payments. Now, normally, obviously, if that company is absolutely tanking, they're not going to continue to tank just so they can keep that title. So usually, the companies who do that, they know they're going to recover in the next year, and they're perfectly fine. And they also have the deep pockets to really pull stuff off like that. And if your companies have deep pockets, that is not a bad thing for your portfolio. These are insanely good stocks to have. They are great for your portfolio. Their dividends are not the highest, but they're stable. Okay, let's actually take a look at a few of these dividend aristocrats. We'll start, of course, with the Canadian side. So we'll look at Canada's top 5 dividend aristocrats. These are ranked simply by how long they have been increasing their dividends. So at number 1, our longest running aristocrat is Canadian Utilities, ticker CU. CU has been, they've been increasing their dividends for 49 straight years, and they also have a very healthy 4.98% yield. So they are a solid buy for any blue chip dividend portfolio. I will also point out they are in the power sector, and they have been diversifying into renewables. If you've got anybody in the power sector that's not diversifying into renewables, that's a scenario for disaster for sure. Number 2 is also in the same energy utility sector, and that is Fortis. Fortis was actually the first stock I ever bought. They are a wonderful company. They're very solid. They have a specific portion of their profits are earmarked for renewables because that's an area that they have been expanding into at an incredible rate. They have a presence right across North America. They are very, very solid, and they have a nice 3.86% yield. So another solid choice for the blue chip dividend portfolio. Up next is a not so solid choice. It's Toromont. TIH, 31 years of consecutive dividends. However, apparently they didn't raise their dividend this year. Well, they are probably absolutely going to fall off this list for next year. So, they're still technically on it. That's the reason I'm including them. They have a lower yield of 1.25%. Some of their financials are a little bit troubling, so I would not call them a solid choice for your blue chip dividend portfolio. So definitely Canadian Utilities, Fortis, they're awesome. Toromont, not quite there. Maybe they'll turn around and they'll make some improvements, but they're going to have to start off at probably year 1 all over again. So number 4. So number 4 is Canadian Western Bank, and you knew you had to see a bank in here eventually. So CWB. They've been raising their dividend for 29 straight years. They currently have a yield of 2.86%. Now, as we know, the Canadian banks have been given permission to substantially increase their dividends. Also, buybacks. I don't yet know what the Canadian Western Bank intends to do on that front. So you may see a nice little pump in these dividends, but either way, it's still a very solid choice for your blue chip portfolio. Last but not least, our number 5 is ATCO Limited, ACO.X. They've been paying out their dividend and raising it for 27 years in a row, and they have a very healthy 4.35% yield. So with these 5 dividends stocks that we have here, other than Toromont, so with 4 of them definitely would look really good in your portfolio, and I highly recommend them in my non-financial advisor capacity, of course. Well, let's head down south, shall we, and we'll see what's going on with America's top 5 dividend aristocrats. Now, if you'll remember, they had 32 of them who are dividend kings, and since we're looking at the top 5 in terms of how long they've been doing it. These will all be dividend kings. So up first, we've got Procter & Gamble, PPG. They've been doing this now for 65 years, consecutive dividend increases with a 1.5% yield. After them, we've got Genuine Parts, GPC, another 65 years of consecutive dividend increases, a slightly better yield at 2.4%. Then we have Dover Corp, so DOV, 65 years of consecutive dividend increases again, with a 1.2% yield. So the yield's a little bit low, but they're going to be definitely a solid company. Up next, we have 3M, MMM. So 63 years of consecutive dividends, a healthy 3.30% yield, and especially, with the pandemic, a lot of 3M was in the news for their masks for quite a while. So 3M makes a lot of different stuff for sure. And finally, number 5, Cincinnati Financial Corp, CINF. 61 years of consecutive dividend increases, 2.1% yield. So you got 5 pretty good companies here, and very solid for a blue chip dividend portfolio. With America, where there is so many aristocrats, though, you can usually look at some and get some better yields and still get some really good blue chip dividend companies. So it's definitely worth looking at. Well, once again, we've come to the end of another video. I want to thank you guys for being here. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like what you've seen here today. We'll be back on Wednesday night on the Crypto Night in Canada live stream, and we'll have another video later in the week. Until then, my name has been Candace, and thank you for taking another trip into the financial verse with me.